We've been going deep on China. In fact, yesterday we had a former head nurse in a Taiwanese hospital talk to us at some length. Fascinating. The key point, Lorne, to me, is not just that they've held the infections and the deaths so low, but that they've done so while their schools are still open, while their restaurants are still open.
Yeah.
You know, the most incredible statement by that same Patty Haidu the other day was she said, if we all stop talking to each other, freeze in motion for 2 weeks. Now, she was using it as a hypothetical, but it was so insane. Here, let me just play that clip because I don't think people will believe me if I don't show you what Patty Haidu said. Take a look at this.
In fact, one of the things that I read recently that I thought was fascinating was that if we all stopped moving for 2 weeks and nobody talked to anybody for 2 weeks and we all just stayed put, in fact, we would see this virus die. That is the reality. The virus needs hosts to continue to infect in order to continue to grow.
Lorne, I mean, I know she didn't literally mean that, but
Right.
I should tell you, at the same time she's talking about us not even talking to each other, there are flights from China landing every day in Canada, Lorne, every day.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to be smarter about this. Now, the Americans shut off all flights from China on January 31st, and they are in bigger trouble than we are because they didn't get on to social distancing and stay in place as quickly as we did. So closing down the borders is not a cure-all. You don't. That's not the only thing you do, and then you're going to be okay. The other thing we need to do, and we have got to get ready to do this because there could easily be a second wave of COVID after this first wave dies down. If not COVID-19, there'll be a COVID-20, there'll be a COVID-21. They might not all be really, really awful, but at some point there's going to be another pandemic, and we have got to be ready to test. Iceland now, because it's a country of only 340,000 people, and it has about 1,000 infections, it's been quite scared about this, has decided that it's going to test the entire population. And so far, they've tested well over 100,000 people so about a third of the population. And they found that about half of the cases of COVID go undetected because the people don't even know they have it. And they develop an immunity to it, which then can be used to determine who should get back into the economy, who should be allowed more freedom of movement. And we've got to the Germans are starting to talk about this now too. The Germans have been very good about testing a lot of people, which is why even though their infection rate is quite high, their death rate's nowhere near as high as it is in Spain and Italy and France. That's testing. And the Germans are now saying, well, we think we will find people who have had COVID and don't know it. And we will give them an immunity certificate, and they will then be allowed to go back out into the economy. They can open up shops. They can go to restaurants. They can open their offices. They can do those sorts of things. And it's unfortunately what we have here, I think, now is a perfect storm between the economically illiterate, which is the federal liberal government, and the ideologically driven political correctness types. And so we've shut down the entire economy rather than identifying where the real problem is. Now, to some extent, I don't blame governments for that because this hit us out of nowhere. Who would have known in mid-January that this was going to happen here? Right. So I give them a bit of a pass. But going forward, their job has got to be not just to protect the population from infection. It's got to be to protect the economy from collapse. And there has got to be a smart way of doing that, the key to which is testing.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.